Okay, welcome everybody to the second ever Wildrose Arcade podcast. This is not at all the second take we've done today.
First try, baby.
Yeah, totally.
Rob and I are here again. My name's Tom, and we're here with a special guest.
Olo.
That's her name.
My name is Olo.
And I guess before we get into the main topic we want to discuss today, I felt like asking what games we've been playing lately and why we've been playing them.
Well, my first answer was that I was playing Monster Hunter, but that's not true. I've been playing a lot of Ark Survival on my computer, a lot more than I think I should be playing it. But I used to play it when it came out on the PlayStation 4. That was actually the first time I played it. I don't know why, but I've been recently playing it with friends on the computer. But I think it's a fun game. I mean, it's kind of like, to me, feels like kind of like a sandbox game. You can kind of just do whatever you want, however you please. I mean, me and my sister play it like it's a dinosaur Pokemon game. Catch all the dinosaurs.
Make them breed.
But they turn into different colors when you breed them, which is cool. I had a yellow wolf and his name was Lemon Meringue.
Who was Strawberry?
The Spino, Mr. Strawberry.
Yeah, he's red.
Yeah, he's red. He's red and green, so his name is Mr. Strawberry because he's a mutated Spino. And he looks like a giant strawberry. So
I also just noticed the correlation between those two games in particular. You spent a couple weeks hunting monsters and now a couple weeks taming them.
Yeah, I know, right? I haven't played Monster Hunter in a while, but that's the last time I played a console game. But I don't know why I stopped playing it. It's a really fun game. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's
Kept me
something I
going
really
for a
want to
while.
get Rob to give a shot because I think you'd like Monster Hunter World.
Yeah. It's lots of fun. I played it for like weeks straight, constant. I think once I decided to put it down and give it a break, I just kind of walked away from it too. Sometimes it happens, but I still haven't completed the game officially. But we'll see. We'll see if I pick it up here soon. Maybe not.
What
I do what I want.
Rob?
I do what I want.
Man. Last little while I've been playing a lot of FIFA 18. So I decided, okay, well, I haven't tried any of this football Ultimate Team stuff. So I'm finally gonna get into that. No one is playing that game online on Switch. Not a single person.
You and I need to play Bomberman. I keep forgetting you have it now.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've been playing that offline, moved up to the next difficulty setting. And then I've started actually like really getting into Pure Solar finally.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's been a while since...
It has been a while.
Yeah, I bought the Steam version of it and played it for like 2 or 3 hours and then never picked it up again.
Yeah, I think that's about the point I'm at now. I mean, not picking it up again, but about 2 or 3 hours in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember we had quite the ordeal getting our hands on that for you.
Yeah, I mean, everyone did.
For Holly and anybody who doesn't know, Pure Solar was a game, was it 2010 when it released?
Yeah, that was like the first printing.
Yeah, it's basically an indie game, but it was built from the ground up basically with something like the Sega Genesis in mind, Sega's old 16-bit console that rivaled the Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. So what they did when the game launched is they actually launched it on the Genesis. It was a game that came out in 2010 on
yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
For the Sega Genesis, and Rob really wanted the game, if nothing else, for the novelty of it.
Yeah.
And so for his birthday, I don't remember what year that was.
It was like a year or two ago.
So 2000... No, it was more than 2 years ago.
Oh, you're talking about like initially ordering the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like 2012 or 2013.
Something like that.
But let's just say it was 2012 because I can't remember exactly. I ordered it for Rob's birthday, which is earlier on in the year, like the first couple months, and it wasn't going to arrive until December. And we thought, okay, well, it makes sense because they have to mass produce the cartridges, right?
Yeah.
So then the following year comes by, and they didn't get enough orders to make it financially feasible to produce the cartridges.
Oh, jeez.
So they said they were going to wait 6 more months, and that turned into another year.
Oh, jeez.
So like my birthday present for Rob in 2012 like finally arrived in like 2014 or 15 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then by that time, the game had come out on other platforms digitally.
Oh,
So we could have just bought it there, but
no, I had to have that one.
I don't think it came out on anything that I had though.
no.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well-
I know it came to the PS3. Was it PS3 or PS4? It came to like
Yeah, I
the
can't
PlayStation
remember.
and Xbox,
Right, yeah.
whatever it was at the time, and it came to Steam, which is where I bought it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it is kind of a cool thing though that you've got like a 2010 cartridge for the Genesis.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool that some indie games do that. Like there's some that are built from the ground up to be like, you know, the Super Nintendo totally could have run this, and so if sometimes their Kickstarters do a special thing where if we hit this milestone, everybody who backed it will get an actual Super Nintendo cartridge for the indie game or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's really cool. I like seeing older systems getting some random support like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one coming out. I don't think they've said when, but it's like a platformer. You play as a fox.
What? I'm all for that.
So, well, I guess to round it out, I've been bouncing around a couple different games lately. I've been trying to get myself back into Breath of the Wild. I'm thinking of doing like a solo 3-heart run let's play.
Ha, already did it.
Yeah. And just getting myself psyched up for that. But the other day, actually, I played a little bit of Wolfenstein, The New Order, trying to get back into it, and I never actually finished it, so I'm trying to finish it before Wolfenstein 2 comes out on the Switch. Is it PAX East or PAX West that's going on right now?
PAX East.
Yeah, they had it playable at PAX East and some footage surfaced, and it looks like it's performing really well, like much better than Doom was at launch.
Oh, cool.
So it definitely seems like something, especially since Bethesda announced back when Wolfenstein 2 first came out on the competing platforms, they announced right away that there is a Switch version coming, but it won't come till 2018 because the game came out like November or something of last year, 2017.
Yeah.
So it definitely seemed to me like they were building it structurally a lot better to play on the Switch rather than Doom was just sort of downscaled across the board. Because there's lots of things people are speculating that what they might have done is done mixed resolutions so that when something's far off in the distance, it's actually like 480p. And as you get closer to it, it increases in resolution, which is something the Switch is actually good at. Breath of the Wild does that. So it seems like that's increased the performance quite a bit. It doesn't seem to have any frame drops that's noticeable to me anyway. So I'll probably be picking it up on the Switch. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
Nice.
But yeah, a little bit of Wolfenstein. Very different from the games you guys have been playing.
I play a very different style of games.
Take us away, Rob. What's the topic of today?
Did we confirm it? So you sent me a text like, did we decide what the topic is? And I was like, I don't know, I like this. And then we just didn't speak of it again.
I like the idea of just sort of having a discussion about the games that influenced a lot of our personal preferences today. Like maybe games we played when we were kids that sort of shaped favorite games. It doesn't have to be when we're kids. Favorite games that sort of shaped our wants and needs from games of today. For me, that's a tricky one because I've
So many.
I've played games my whole life, and I can actually like look back and see the phases I went through, because it was like ages, who knows, earliest age, let's just say, I don't know, 3 or something, that I played a video game. 3 to 10, it was RPGs. 10 to 15, it was shooters. You know, like I can actually see it when I look back on it. So it's, for me, it's a game I guess that was worth mentioning. It's a little bit more modern than I was hoping to talk about for this, but it would actually be the Mass Effect trilogy, because in my mind Andromeda didn't happen. But it would be the Mass Effect trilogy mainly because when I look back so much on the games that I prefer, I like RPGs, I like action games, I like shooters, And when you sort of, and I like science fiction, so when you sort of combine,
I think we should just round it out. You just like games.
I do. But when you sort of combine all those elements in a good way, one of the things that could pop out would be something like Mass Effect, and Mass Effect scratched that itch for me. I'm not really sure what to say about it. I really like the whole trilogy. That's why in my mind it's sort of one big game that was spread out between whatever years that was, 2007 to 2012, I think. But yeah, it's... I really hope the Mass Effect trilogy comes to Switch, because I think that is something that's not only doable, but would be a great way to cleanse the palate from what Andromeda did.
Owie.
It just wasn't... It was BioWare's B team making the game from the ground up on their own, and there's a reason they're the B team.
Howie.
No offense to anybody who worked. I don't doubt that, you know, the guy who, I don't know, programmed fucking facial expressions didn't give it his best, but it
Just
wasn't
in comparison to
it wasn't up
its
to the
predecessors.
standards of what the A team on the trilogy could do. Because it's astonishing to me when I look at screenshots, because you look at Mass Effect 1, it still looks graphically really good, but you can actually tell that it's, you know, the way character models move and stuff, you can tell that it's like, okay, this was 2007, where graphics really started taking a huge leap forward, but like they still had to keep things pretty rigid for the frame rate or whatever, and it feels like a game from that era, but it still looks good. And then you look at Mass Effect 3, and it's just so graphically impressive. It's, in my opinion, it's a prettier game than Andromeda, which surprises me. I don't know. I don't want to beat the Mass Effect. You know, I don't want to be beating a dead horse here on this particular topic, but I really did not enjoy Andromeda, and I'm allowed to say it now, but I had a small voice role in the game, and I can't even be bothered to play it long enough to find myself. Because I hate that game so much. Anyway, going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about, like, figuring out what games influenced me the most is really tricky. Because I went through so many phases throughout my life, like, there's platformers in there, and as I am now, I pretty much just like all of the above, as long as they're, you know, executed in an enjoyable way.
Yeah.
But there were points in my life where, like, I love the fuck out of Super Mario Odyssey and whatever else, and I haven't played it yet, but ukulele, like Banjo-Kazooie, I still like to play those games or whatever. But there was a point in my life where I suddenly was like, no, those are baby games. I'm gonna play Halo. And now I'm like,
moving to the big boy games.
Yeah, I think that's sort of like a natural progression. Like, right around the time you become a teenager, it's like, no, I have to be an adult. I have to play this very, you know, gritty, serious game. And then you sort of grow out of that, and it's like, oh, I just want to play this game about the little men being friends.
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
So, I'm really not entirely sure. If I go super far back, one of the games that pops in my mind is Mystic Quest. Because I think that was the first RPG I ever played. Not counting Zelda, because depending on your definition of RPG, that gets a little... Yeah. But it's, I would call it, I don't know, I would almost want to call it an RPG, but it's more of an action game. With small RPG elements. It's like saying Assassin's Creed Origins is an RPG. It's an action game with RPG elements. This is the way I look at it. Because when you look at anything that has like a leveling system and a skill tree and whatever, that's RPG influenced.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Mystic Quest, it's technically, I actually can't quite remember. It's technically Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, but it's not a true Final Fantasy game. It was actually developed for Europe and North America, specifically because Squaresoft, who ended up merging with Enix or whatever their name was and became Square Enix. They actually believed that gamers in North America were kind of stupid.
Ouch.
So they
Thanks,
made.
guys. Thanks.
I mean, you've been on the internet. I kind of believe that.
I know, we're eating Tide Pods for Christ's sakes. I'd say that's a safe assessment.
They developed the game to actually be easy, to be like a very bare bones, like compared to like say how Final Fantasy 6 and 7 operate. It's like comparing those to Pokemon. Like it is very much you have an axe. An axe is good against this enemy. You also have a sword. A sword is good against this enemy, you know? And it's very obvious and whatever. But when you're, I don't even know how old I was, but when you're like 3, 4, 5 years old, that was the game that I could actually like fathom and play on my own, and beating it was like, yeah, I did a thing.
I did it all by myself.
Because I was actually at an age where even my mother played game, and my father, they played games with me, and it wasn't just like kids today. Maybe they played like Wii bowling with their parents. It wasn't. That,
I did.
Yeah, I mean everybody did, but it wasn't that same sort of situation. Like my mother literally enjoyed playing like Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country. Which, by the way, if you've never played Donkey Kong Country, in my opinion, I think they're the best 2D platformers. But like I remember my mother taking days off work because she wanted to play Donkey Kong Country.
That's me as a parent.
Without her son holding her back from proceeding in the game. There was a point in time where she was better at games than I was, and she used to farm lives because I would die so much and get frustrated. Which is why I don't look down on people for like setting the difficulty on easy to like get past a boss. Because when I really think back on it, that's how I got as good as I am. Was because I had someone to help me move past the hard part.
And sometimes it's not just having the skill to beat the game, it's experience in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to lower your difficulty setting to do that, then who fucking cares, right? Like, if I want to experience the full effect of like the storyline and what like, you know, the game was the story that the game was made to tell, do I really have to be a super pro gamer to do that? Not necessarily. You play the game how you want to play the game. That's why they have difficulty settings, because you play it at your skill level. It doesn't matter if you can play it on hard or play it on easy. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I guess Final Fantasy VII would be the first like real RPG I ever played, and it definitely cemented some of my personal preferences in terms of like, I wanted to say in terms of visuals, but that's not true anymore. Being how polygonal everything is.
That game is terrifying sometimes to watch you play it. I honestly never played it like as a kid, so when I was watching you replay it, I was like, it's hard to believe that that's actually what they chose to make it look like.
Yeah, I was replaying it a couple weeks ago, and I bought it on Steam for super cheap. And if you have a PC, if you have Steam, you don't even need a good PC to run it. If you have PC, get a Steam account and buy that game. I think it's like $10, and it's a fantastic RPG, especially playing it on PC today, because it gives you the option of rendering it everything in 1080p. I can't tell you how much easier that makes it, because instead of the button on the wall you have to push looking like a blurry mess that blends into the rest of the wall, you can actually see there is a green blinking button on that wall that you can push. So instead of running around in circles being like, what the fuck do I do? You can actually see the button on the wall and go push the button. So
that really affected you.
It's difficult to differ like the environment to what you can actually interact with, right?
Yeah.
Because you know sometimes they have like a fake backdrop just to make it look all nice and pretty or whatever, or just kind of like set the stage of where you're supposed to be. But in that game, the stuff that you can interact with looks like the background that you're not supposed to be on. Like it doesn't look like the character can physically be placed on that layer or something. So it just looks so freaking weird, and I have no idea how you're supposed to understand what you can actually interact with. It's so confusing.
A lot of it I'm doing it out of memory, of being like, I remember the solution to the puzzle being on the left side of this room, so it's over here somewhere. I don't know what it is,
Just
but I
jump
remember
until
it's
you
over
hit
there. But anyway, I feel like that game cemented the most of what I value in like an RPG. Just in terms of world building, characters, and sort of like, I want to say like camera angle. It's hard to describe, but if you look at how the more classic-ish Tales of games are, like Symphonia through to Vesperia, like how the visuals and camera angles and the world exploration and everything was set up, it's very much the same way.
Right.
And that's something I really miss about the Tales of series now. Before I get directly into that, I want to mention Tales of Symphonia is another game that I really love, that really is almost basically a 10 out of 10 game for me.
You never stop talking about it.
But what I value the most out of those older Tales games in Final Fantasy VII, I miss it about the modern day Tales of structure, is I actually like, I wouldn't call it chibi, but like the smaller sort of sprites that are very well. I think Tales of Vesperia had the best visual design for a Tales of game. And with the exception of how the modern games you can manipulate the camera, I wish they'd actually go back to you're a sprite in a place and you exit the city and you're on a world map and you can run around from town to town on this like sort of big overworld. I miss that. I don't like how it's shifted towards trying to mimic sort of an open world kind of experience. I don't know. I just, to a certain extent, I think the market is very oversaturated with open world games these days.
But they're so fun.
They are.
Yeah.
I like open world games. I just mean that I miss when there was something about those overworld maps, and specifically
it just had its own
game.
identity as not an open world kind of game, but
Yeah.
the way it did it made it feel like it.
But it also made it feel like you were traveling across this world. Whereas if you play, like Tales of Zestiria is the most recent one I've played, and it's a lot better at this. So I think it will get better as they keep going. But when, like, say it takes you 2 minutes to run from town to town, when that 2 minutes is on like a globe that's rotating beneath your feet, you feel like you've crossed the continent.
Yeah.
In the modern games, it takes the same amount of time to run from town A to town B, but when you do it on a forest and then you look at your world map and you're on the other side of the continent, it feels like you walked to 7-Eleven, but somehow you're on the other side of the continent. And whereas in the older games, it felt like you just traversed this world a big, large distance. There's just certain gameplay feels I miss about it, but in terms of RPGs, I would say Final Fantasy VII and Tales of Symphonia are the biggest influences to what I look for in modern day RPGs. I don't know. At this point, most of this podcast is me talking. So I'm
Well,
waiting.
I mean, you're sitting on your own subject, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, going back to the whole Tales of series thing, like I didn't really grow up playing a lot of the older ones, so I experienced a lot more of the newer ones. So I'm on the totally opposite side of the spectrum as you are. Like I quite enjoy like the newer games. I like the kind of take that they've done on them, and I do like agree with like, you know, how you think that they've done like their kind of world map idea. But again, the most recent one I've also played is Tales of Zestiria. I haven't been able to play the newer one. But I feel that yes, they have kind of not necessarily perfected, but they've made it a lot better of how they're doing, you know, like the traveling between distances. Like instead of your entire gameplay being just town to town to town, you actually have now an outside environment that you can explore, and you can see different things, you can collect different items and stuff like that. It's a much larger area for more like exploration, which makes it feel like such a much larger world, instead of just having everything kind of like smaller size. It's, you know, up to original like normal size scale. Referring to a game like Tales of Xillia, in my opinion, that's one of my favorite Tales of games, just because of characters and story and stuff like that. I just had a good experience playing the game, so I really like it. But yeah, I feel that their like travel like distances, it wasn't very well executed because it doesn't feel like you're really going anywhere far, right? So it does take a little bit of that like immersion out of it, I guess. But I think when I played Tales of Zestiria, I was actually pretty impressed with what they did with like the like overall environment. And I personally would like to see a lot more of that happen with the Tales of series, in my opinion. But then again, like the oldest one that I played without you was Tales of Vesperia, and I really enjoyed that game. And then I've also been experienced playing Tales of Symphonia with you. I still really love the game, but I see them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know which way I prefer. I just like playing games. Sometimes I don't really have overall like critique comments about things. Like as long as I have fun playing it, I don't really let it bother me that much. And then if I can experience something new playing a game that feels similar to a previous one, but then has its own different ideas and perspectives, then I'm all for that because I think it's entertaining. You know, I don't want to play this like games that all feel the same because then you get bored after a while. But for me, I didn't grow up playing games, consoles. I think the first console I owned was a PS1. I had friends and relatives that I went and visited that had like, you know, the Nintendo 64 or whatever. I'm pretty sure I played Ocarina of Time and didn't even know what it was. I'm pretty sure I played it for 5 minutes and couldn't figure out what to do. I was too little to have the patience for it. I remember playing Banjo and Kazooie, but I had no idea. I don't even remember if I finished playing that game. I probably played at somebody's house for like an hour. But I grew up playing games like Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot was my shit when I was when I was little. Mainly because I had a lot of I grew up with two sisters and sharing was a big problem. So games that I could play 2-player were like 3 thumbs up. To be kind of funny about it. So yeah, I played a lot of Crash Bandicoot because that was a fun game. Pretty much in my childhood, if it had animals in it, I wanted to play it. Because
Not just your childhood.
yes. No, if it's got an animal in it, I still play it now. But I'm a little bit more broad and like I'm a little bit more, you know, explorative with my games now today. But I remember, because my parents weren't very like, they were kind of poor when I was younger, so I didn't get like purchase new games or anything like that. I got demo games out of cereal boxes, and that's what I played. I played demos of like Tomb Raider, Gex, and Bloody Roar. That's what I played when I was a kid. But yeah, Crash Bandicoot was like what I can remember, like the first game that I really got into playing. Like I still love that game. I love how they did like the new like HD trilogy. I unfortunately haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Coming to Switch.
Shh, I know. But yeah, my sister has it. I've been watching her play it, and it looks super good. Like I'm really happy with it. Like as a fan, I'm happy with what's been done with it. And then the new Spyro is coming out soon too, which is awesome because I played Spyro as a kid as well, demos, and then I bought the actual games because then I liked it. But yeah. For me as a kid, it was 2-player games. If I could play a 2-player, that was the game to have. But then, yeah, as I started becoming a little bit more of a gamer, I started getting more consoles. Like, I ended up upgrading to my PS2, and then I ended up getting an Xbox and a Wii, and all the cool stuff that all the cool kids had. And but one game that really, like, shaped everything about me, like, whether it be my gaming, whether it be, like, my own other personal hobbies, was a game called Okami. And this game I rented when renting was a thing. You went to the Blockbuster and you rented the video game. I saw a demo of it playing in like one of their like, you know, try out this game stand when they had the controller like stuck to the machine and you're like playing a demo of this game. And I played like the first like 2 minutes. And I'm like, cool, I can run around as like this badass looking wolf. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna play this game. And so I took it home, and then it ended up being this like weird Japanese art style game. I remember looking on like the outside of the box, and I'm like, oh shit, I really hope the graphics don't look like this because I thought it looked like shit. I thought it looked terrible. I thought it looked awful. But then I'm playing this game, and it's just like this artistic like burst of amazingness. My vocabulary is very small. But yeah, as soon as I played this game, the story and the characters and the art style and everything about it just pulled me in. I had so many emotions that I experienced when I was playing this game that it's by far my favorite game of all time. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with gameplay necessarily. It's just the overall emotions that I felt. Like, this game just made me feel so much, and it inspired me so much. Like, it inspired, my art, it inspired my cosplay, it inspired, it inspired me to play other games as well too. But just because I've never seen anything like it, it's just such a unique game, with some pretty unique controls as well too, which I thought was really interesting, and it kind of really pulled me into the gameplay because it was something very, very different. Like, you can pretty much just draw as you play this game, which is something I'm totally into because I'm a huge drawer, painter, whatever. And then the cherry on the top is I have a very unhealthy obsession with wolves. I love them. I think they're so cool. And then there's this video game that I get to play as a goddamn wolf god. I'm like, yes, sign me up. I want this. I need this. I breathe this. I bleed this.
You have a tattoo of that?
I have a tattoo on my shoulder of that same character, yeah. But yeah, she, everything that her character stands for, she just inspired me, and all of the characters, down from your main characters and your NPCs, they all have such personality. They all have their own dreams, their own goals, and they're not just there just to be there. They have their own problems, and then you as a god are supposed to, you're not necessarily supposed to, but you can help people with such minor issues. Some people just want flowers, and you can give them flowers, and they pray to the heavens for these flowers, and that's all they want out of life is just flowers. Which is kind of nice. It's just kind of simple in a way, right? But even though she's on this massive journey to save the world, you can take the time to help the little girl that wants you to make her a drawing in the sand, right? So it's a lot of that game is just, I could go on and on and on and on for hours.
How would you describe the game to someone like Rob, who's only seen footage and never played it?
How explain? Gameplay explain, story explain.
I would describe
awesomeness
it as,
explain.
I would describe it as very similar to how classic Zelda formula has.
Okay, that's a very
comparison
good way to
I've
describe
heard.
it. Around the same time, I started playing Twilight Princess. Actually, Okami came up before Twilight Princess. I think we looked that up. But I started playing them around the same time, and they remind me very much of each other. It has the very kind of same plot lines, how in
They're
Twilight
both
Princess.
very different. You're restoring the world that's fallen apart. You're playing as a wolf. One's white, one's black.
I'm pretty sure they
totally
inspired
different.
one another, but anywho. The Zelda, you kind of go through your tutorial phase, and then you do some outside world exploration, and then you do your dungeon, and then your boss, and then you kind of do it all over again. Okami has very much the same dynamic, right? You run around, you plant some trees, some flowers, you make things look pretty here and there, and then you go into a dungeon to beat a boss, right? So you do outside world kind of puzzles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in these dungeons as well, you do things like puzzles, but they're unique in their own way because you have to use Amaterasu's brush technique to do some of these puzzles, which is basically the game mechanic where you actually use your celestial brush and you draw shapes to manipulate nature.
Right.
Right? You can manipulate the wind, the sun, the flowers, lightning, fire, water. You can manipulate any element you freaking want, but you have to gain those powers back because you don't necessarily have them, right? So depending on what powers you have, you use those as your tools to be able to solve these puzzles, get through these dungeons, and usually at the end of that said dungeon, kind of like they do in Zelda, how you get a tool the claw shot or the bow, you have to use that tool to defeat the boss. Usually you find your brush technique in that dungeon, and usually that brush technique helps you defeat the boss at the end of the dungeon. It's very similar, but obviously their stories are
very different. But yeah, I'm really excited that they've released so many like the HD remasters of this game, because it's honestly stunning with it in the HD. Like, I played it originally on the PS2. It later came out on the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
And it sucked. I think they were kind of looking for the motion control that kind of helped with the drawing of the brush technique, but sometimes the Wii's
It's a
sensor
catch-22.
bars weren't really that great, so
Yeah.
it didn't always work. But I think now they've said that it's going to come out on the Switch in June, and I think that that's like, this is the perfect console for this game, 100%, because I like it. I like the Switch. And, I mean, the motion controls have definitely been perfected on this system, that I think using the brush techniques with their motion control technology, I think it'll work very well and very, like,
The
fluently.
gyros are pretty precise in the Joy-Con.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think that, like, one of the reasons why they wanted to put it on the Wii to kind of utilize the motion controls is because you had to draw using your little joystick, and I know a lot of people had issues with that. I mean, I've played this game, like, I can't even count how many times I've replayed this game, so I'm just used to it. Like, I honestly probably won't even use the motion controls when I play it on the Switch, but, I mean, I know that might be a big asset for a lot of players who want to play this game. But I'm really hoping that with this HD, constant HD release for all these platforms, that maybe Capcom might actually consider making another one. Like, I've been wanting a second Okami for a really long time. They did release kind of like a second one on the Nintendo DS. It was
right.
called Okami Den. It was a good game, but I think that they kind of reused a lot of what they used to make the original Okami. Like, the maps were pretty much the same, the dungeons were almost identical. They had a few different bosses and a few different characters here and there, and it was okay. But it certainly was not what I was looking for a second Okami game, and that's something that I really want to see. I want to see them, like, work really hard on it. Like, I'm a huge fan of this game, and I will be a huge fan forever, and I hope a lot of other fans feel the same way and want to see more from this creator, because it's a gorgeous game. It's completely unique. There's nothing else like it. Visually wise, I mean, obviously there's a lot of games that are very similar in gameplay to it, but there's words that I just cannot express how much I love this game. So
I'm pretty sure a sequel could be on the horizon.
I sure hope so.
Because Hideki Kamiya, the director, he said many times he wants to make a
Yeah,
sequel.
he has.
But it's a matter of, like, the game was never successful enough that Capcom wanted to fund it.
Yeah, it was never like
Yeah.
a big, big game.
So I think these constant releases are like a way to try to build.
Well, I initially
A
thought that
fan
that's
base
what
again.
Okami Den was supposed to be, but then they released it on a Nintendo system when I think most of their fan base was from, like, PlayStation consoles, which I thought was kind of strange. So I think that's might have where, like, a lot of some
I
people
think
got
it
lost.
sold better on the Wii, I think, than it sold on the PS2. I'd have to look that up, but I feel like that's the case. I don't
Right.
I think just because of, like, sort of the market saturation of the Wii, most things must have sold at least a
because,
little
like,
better on it.
at that point, everyone had a Wii. Like, even parents wanted to get a Wii.
Yeah.
Old
Right?
folks' homes
Old
had
folks
Wiis.
had Wiis because you could be active on the Wii. You could have, like, the little Wii Fit board that I had that I used to do aerobics on that thing. But yeah, my mom actually bought me my first Wii because she wanted to use it, because she's like, oh yeah, you could do exercise, like, we're gonna be super healthy, we're gonna play bowling and tennis, all that shit. Like, even today, my mom considered buying a Nintendo Switch for herself because she thought she could play Wii bowling on it, but I told her no, so then she didn't end up buying it. I told her, just play my Wii, there's Wii bowling on the Wii, like, just play it. But I mean, I love the Wii Sports games, like, there's nothing wrong with them. And then, yeah, shit, I played the hell out of the Wii Fit aerobics. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's like dancing to music.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we never had Wii Fit, but I think my parents bought us a Wii for pretty much the same reason. Like, they just saw, you can do kind of sports
Yeah,
things
you can
like
be
it.
active. You can play games and be active. It's cool.
And, like, that was right around the time I was starting to get really serious about, like, yeah, I really like games. And they're like, okay, we have to do something for this kid. Joke's on them, sat in the dark playing
He's
Baroque
gonna
all the
become
time.
one with the couch if we don't do something.
Now, that's a game I want to hear you talk about. Baroque. Is that a game you plan on mentioning today?
I don't know, because, like, I don't know that I've played a whole lot like Baroque. Because, I don't know, I guess I'll sort of start from the beginning. 'Cause I got
Back to the beginning of time.
in 1993.
Okay, not that far back.
No, in 1992, a mommy and a dad
Oh,
loved each
okay.
other
Yeah,
very
nope,
much.
nope, not this kind of podcast. Nope.
But, I mean, I started out a lot like you, like, with pretty much all the same consoles, too. Like, played N64 games at my friends' houses. Eventually, like, one of my mom's work friends, her kids, this was around the time the GameCube and all that were coming out, so her kids were sick of their PlayStation.
Oh, no.
Which was
Why
kind
would
of
you get
half
so
broken anyway. So she gave it to us, and, like, I played on that for a little bit, and until it completely broke. Then after that, we got, like, a GameCube and a Wii. I bought myself a Game Boy Advance.
You bought the cool one.
I did.
Cool one.
The Shrek 2 version.
Oh.
It's honestly got a really wicked cool color scheme.
Oh,
yeah.
dear.
Yeah, it's like...
Is it, like, legit? Like
It was marketed... I mean,
Shrek?
it was marketed as, like, I think they called it Swamp. And when I bought it from Toys R Us,
Oh my gosh.
it came free with Shrek 2.
Oh man, that sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
I mean, it looks cool.
Yeah, never had a Game Boy. I got a Nintendo DS. That was the first handheld console I had. For Nintendogs, yeah!
See, I like completely skipped over the DS. I had, my little SP and then right to the 3DS. But I realized, like, when I was thinking about this, one of the first games...
I don't mean to interrupt, but just so Harley could see it, I found a picture of his.
Yeah.
It looks kind of gross.
It's orange and green.
Yeah, but... fair enough. Alright, continue, Rob.
So yeah, like, I was thinking about this, and I realized, like, one of the first games I got for pretty much every console I've ever had has been a sports game, because, we got the PlayStation, and, like, I'm a big hockey fan, big Flames fan, so I was like, oh, they've got NHL 2001. That's only, like, 2 years ago. This is great.
Only 2 years ago! Awesome! It's only slightly dated!
And so I played a ton of that. Actually, I played a lot of that with my dad, who I always beat like 10-0, which I found really satisfying. And yeah, for a lot of years, almost all I played were sports games. Like I had that. I had FIFA 2005 on the Game Boy Advance. I had FIFA 06 on the GameCube and 1080. 1080's sick.
I don't know enough about
It's a
1080.
snowboarding racing game.
I never played any sports game. I thought they were kind of strange. As a kid, I'm like, if you want to play the sport, go out and play the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand
But
now,
see,
but...
I was a fat kid who liked sports, so they were perfect.
Exactly. I'm not only a fat kid, but if I wanted to fucking go racing on Sea-Doos, I don't exactly live near the coast, but I can pop in Wave Race 64.
Yeah, I'm a fat kid who can't skate. I'll score 4 goals on you with Pavel Bure. But so anyway, yeah, like most of the like first few games I played were either sports I liked, or I played Gran Turismo because I thought cars were cool. I
cars were cool.
I played Pokemon Fire Red because I liked the show.
Oh yeah, that's the first Pokemon game I ever played.
They're not that young. They just had terrible childhoods.
I know.
I had
poor
cards.
people.
I had like 10
so
cards.
Sad. We're so sad.
My first Pokemon game was Gen 1. I think it was Red. Pokemon Red.
But yeah, I
Get
think
on my level.
Shut up.
I think the first game I played just because I was like, oh, I really want to experience this gameplay was I was at an EB Games and they had a little display kiosk set up for the DS because that was like the hot new thing at the time. I was like, oh, it's a touchscreen. This is the future. So I decided to try it, and this game's on the screen. It's WarioWare Touched. I was like, what? What's this? I've heard of Wario. I know who that dude is. So I tap the little start button. It goes into the demo. And it's like, slice this fruit. and you slice it by like swiping across the screen with the stylus. And at the time, I thought that was like the coolest shit. It's like, oh my god, because like not only was it like this amazing new gimmick, but like the games I sort of gravitate to are the ones where you can just sort of play them in like short chunks and have basically a complete experience. Like, you can play an NHL game, or you can do a run in something like Gone.
You don't have to dedicate like ridiculous amount of hours to actually like finish the game to get the full like experience of the
You
game.
can just do like 2 or 3 shrines.
Yeah.
In Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, like you can sit down for 10 minutes and by the end have like some sort of satisfying conclusion. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool. And so I think it was like a year or 2 after that, I saw, there's a WarioWare game coming to the Game Boy Advance. I have that. That was WarioWare Twisted. Which is like, another cool gimmick. So like because I was like 12 or whatever, I'd saved up my money, paid the $40 for that, and from there like I was just hooked. Like that's still at least in my top 2 favorite games with Baroque.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost every time we talk about like games we'd like to see come to the Switch, Rob always comes up, a new WarioWare.
And it half happened. So we're getting a new one on the 3DS.
Oh, there you go.
August 3rd. 17 weeks.
Only 17 weeks, 4 hours, 36 minutes. Yeah, I think especially with the Joy-Cons, I think a WarioWare would work real well on the Switch. I think the problem they might be running into, if any, in that regard, might be how would you play it in handheld mode? Because once you're playing it on the TV, you got your motion controls or whatever to do these cool winnie games, but they have to make sure anything that the Switch, that version of the game does on the Switch can also be done in handheld mode.
Yeah. Well, especially because, like, a lot of the WarioWare games are so dependent on, like, what's sort of a central concept of the console it's on. Or, like, whatever hardware they're using, like, you use the touch screen and the microphone a lot. And the microphone stage is kind of bad,
using
but whatever.
the microphones.
And then, Twisted, you're mostly, like, moving the Game Boy. Smooth Moves, you're using the motion controls. But, yeah, so that's an interesting thing to consider.
Nintendo, make it happen. This man needs it.
But, yeah, like, yeah, I mean, I think it was sort of like the sports games that made it so I liked those really, like, sort of concrete, discrete experiences. And actually, I did get that a lot from Baroque.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the very brief time... Actually, before I say that, how would you describe Baroque to someone like Holly, who's never probably even heard of the game?
I don't even know what it is.
I'm
a bad gamer, okay? I'm so bad.
Baroque wasn't
no
exactly
one knows
like,
Baroque.
Baroque was like
I know,
even more obscure
but
than
listen to
Okami.
this, everybody. I did not play Mario as a child.
Honestly, neither
I
did
am
I.
very
really.
bad.
The first Mario game I really played was the Game Boy Advance.
You want to know something? I don't think I still to this day I don't think I've played a Mario game.
Like at all?
Yeah.
That's actually impressive.
You're giving me like dagger eyes right now.
No, I'm honestly like flabbergasted.
Well, like we own Super Mario Odyssey, and I want to play the game, but I have not yet played it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that begs the question: what would you define, Rob, to like be a Mario game? Because you've played Mario Kart, Smash Brothers.
Oh, okay, yeah, but I don't play as Mario.
But yeah, I know, but that's what I mean. Like, are those the only games of Mario in it that you've played?
Yes.
That's impressive.
Why?
I don't know. It feels so.
It's called
like,
avoidance. No, I'm kidding. I don't avoid them.
It just feels so like. Growing up for me, we had an NES and a Super Nintendo.
But I didn't grow up with those consoles, so Mario wasn't even a concept for me.
It's hard for me to
I grew up with
visualize.
Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and Sly Cooper.
Exactly.
Those were my heroes of the day of childhood gaming.
You're the Sony pony of this group.
Sony pony.
But yeah, like for me, it's weird thinking back on that too, because I clearly remember when I had the mentality of like between the NES and the SNES, there's no difference. Like, you know, when you're at that innocent point of like, I don't understand that one's hardware is better than the other. I just play games because they're fun to play games.
Yeah.
I remember having like 2 stacks of the 2 types of cartridges, the 2 consoles next to the TV in the basement. but I had no perception of like
One's different than the other.
why are these games. I think the only difference I could conclude between them was that this controller has 4 face buttons and the other one has 2. But I had no concept of this one's older than that one or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it surprises me you've never played any Mario. Like,
Yeah, no, I've never played.
all of the OGs,
No.
fucking Mario Brothers, Super Mario
The
World,
OGs.
originals.
I'm sorry.
Like the Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, and Super Mario World, and all they were big parts of my childhood.
In my defense, it's just as a kid that wasn't really the kind of game that would pull me in, right? Like for example, like when I was talking before, like if it had animals in it, I was playing that game, right?
Yoshi's
It had.
an animal.
He's a dinosaur though. It's different.
Oh, okay, Little Miss Ark over here.
Shh, I'm older now, more wiser. But no, like there was nothing like when I looked at a Mario game, there was nothing that pulled me in to say I want to play this game. As as a player who knows nothing about what Mario is, right? Like I didn't know what to expect from gameplay. I didn't know what to expect from anything. I just see this little anime-looking plumber dude with weird friends. It's
Okay, hang on. Before we move on from this, does everybody here remember the old hashtag explain a film plot badly?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody who watches this, I want to start a new hashtag explain a game plot badly. And try to top that description of Mario.
And she be plumber man with weird friends.
Yes. So should be fat Italian man with weird friends.
No, he's a plumber man. Plumber man.
Well, no, last year he wasn't a plumber anymore.
Okay, that's
And then
right.
suddenly
Okay,
he
all
was
right.
again.
And then we got to
Alright.
see his nipples, and things have just gone
I beg your
downhill.
pardon?
In Mario Odyssey, there's one of the costumes you can have is he's shirtless.
Oh, that's right.
And
yes.
people were freaking out all over
Because you
the
can
place
see
because
his
you can see
nipple.
Mario's
What
nipples.
the fuck, guys? Come on, they're just nipples. Come on.
I want to see Waluigi's nipples.
Oh, come on.
I don't know, they're
your
probably all, like,
romance with Waluigi.
Probably
over
all
there.
long and spindly.
But yeah, anyway, but yeah, I like there as a kid gamer there was just nothing interesting that made me say I want to spend my money on this game. So I just never ended up playing it. And then I ended up just playing a lot of other games, and for some reason sometimes I get in the perspective in my head that game's too old for me. I don't think it's going to entertain me anymore because it's an older style. People don't play games like that anymore, and then I just kind of accepted that as reality. But then I started getting into, playing games more and actually experiencing, different kinds of games, even older games, right? And so I'm a little bit more open to the idea. I'm sure I would love to play an older Mario game. It's just, I just never had the chance or the desire to. And of course I want to play Super Mario Odyssey because I was super excited to see that game come to the Switch, and I was kind of excited that it was a little bit different from the older Mario games. So it's something I certainly want to play. It's not that I don't want to play Mario. I've just played other things than Mario. So like even I'm pretty sure the first Zelda game I ever played was Twilight Princess, and it was only after that I actually said, hey, I like Zelda, and then I started playing other Zelda games. And even though I probably ended up picking Ocarina of Time up when I was a lot younger, because playing that game again on the DS, I remember certain things about it, so I'm pretty sure I did end up playing it back in the day, but I did understand what I was playing and what it was, right? But it does feel nostalgic for me when I play that game, and but yeah, no, I really like going like way deep in the Zelda franchise. We're not probably going to do that, but no, I really enjoy those games. But yeah, the first one I ever picked up was Twilight Princess, and you want to know why? Because I could be a wolf! And that is the only reason I picked that game up. Because I am a weird, twisted person, and I have weird taste in video games. So, that's my spiel. And I only picked up a Tales of game because I thought there was a voice actor in there that I liked. Turns out that wasn't the case, but that's the only reason I picked up Tales of game. And now it's like one of my favorite.
Who was it? Was it Vic Mignogna?
Yeah, I thought. Okay, like when I was 15, that's when I started getting into anime. First anime I ever saw was Full Metal Alchemist, and of course I was like Vic Mignogna's like #1 fangirl, because that's what everyone does. And
To be fair, she's not wrong. Even I
Vic is
was, like,
awesome.
super
I
scared
love
when I got
him.
to meet him.
I love him. He's awesome. But yes, I was under the impression that my sister told me big fat lie, and apparently there was a character in Tales of Vesperia that she was convinced that was voiced by Vic Mignogna. Turns out it was just a really good imposter. It was not actually Vic Mignogna, and I didn't find that out until probably about a year ago, when I actually looked it up. But it was the character Zagi from Tales of Vesperia.
I can't picture that as Vic at all.
Based on my like extremely foggy memories of how it sounded, I kind of can.
It kind of did though. Like honest to God, it kind of did. We'll discuss this later. But yes, that's the only reason I picked up a Tales of game, and it was only after that did I see the new, at the time, new Tales of Exilia game, and I'm like, oh, I played a game with a similar title, and I picked up the game, and then that, for me, was my favorite Tales of game. Because I love the characters. Jude's my boy. Yeah.
Jude the dude.
Jude the dude. I'm a huge Tales of cosplayer right now, so that's my thing. But yeah.
My favorite character in that game is Rowan.
Rowena.
My beautiful sister, Rowena.
I'm going to leave that one out of context for everybody. Just until we eventually have an inevitable, like, Tales of themed podcast.
Oh, God, yeah. That's going to be a long one. Jesus Christ. But yes, yeah, my early video game taste was, I want to play as an animal because I'm a human being and I don't want to be a human being for a couple hours. That was my idea. Some of my actually favorite games from the PlayStation 1 was like, when they used to do those really bad games after movies, like Tarzan and The Lion King and Emperor's New Groove. I still have that game.
That was actually the start of it, too, of when licensed games started to suck. Because when you go back to, like, the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and older, the only people making games were people who knew how to make games. Generally.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, the Disney licensed games were good.
Yeah.
And then you run into stuff like, it's the Street Sharks Brawler.
Don't get me wrong, they were great games.
Yeah.
Like, I still love those games. Like, I still own the Emperor's New Groove PlayStation 1 game because it was fucking rad. Like, I can race Kronk as a turtle. Fuck yeah.
I've seen footage of that game. I don't think fucking rad is the way it should be described.
It was when I was a kid. I went to my grandma's house and I played as Cusco. I was happy.
Because you were a llama?
Yes. It was because I was a llama. And I could spit at people and say witty comments.
Living the dream.
Yeah, honestly. No, those were my favorite games as a kid because, like, those were, like, my favorite, like, Disney movies. And what's the next best thing from watching a Disney movie? Playing your Disney movie.
Yeah, I think that's a big draw for kids. It's like, okay, here's a thing I like, and now I can be that thing. Now I can
be this character, right? Like, you attach yourself to these characters because you like them.
Yeah.
And now, at this point, you can be them.
Yeah,
and that's awesome.
I can be this lion, or this wolf, or Jerome McGinley.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. No, but yeah, those were the kind of games that I enjoyed when I was a kid. Just because, honestly, I made up my own rules. I could fuck around. I could do whatever the hell I wanted. Open world games were the best for me when I was a kid because I could do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to play the game. The game wanted me to do it. I ran around like a freaking idiot, and I disturbed shit. Like, if I could set things on fire, it was on fire. If I could kill people, I killed people. Grand Theft Auto, I run people over all the time. I try to see how many cops I can get to chase me. Like, that sounds like a good idea, right? Open world games for me were, like, really fun because I could now use my own imagination, but then I can kind of see it right there in front of me. And then that was the next best thing to, like, playing with my sister, pretending I'm, like, dogs or whatever, because then now I can actually physically play it on, like, a video game kind of thing, right? So for me, that was, like, amazing. That's what I liked out of games, really. Now there's silence. What the hell? Guys, talk. I'm alone in this room.
There's too much pressure now.
I'm not sure what else to say about... I've been trying to think of other games to talk about that really influenced me, and I don't really know, beyond what I've mentioned already, what else to say about them.
Hasn't already been said.
It hasn't already been said, because the biggest thing for me even today is RPGs, and what I like most about them is the character development and the character designs too. I like seeing like really cool looking guys and girls and whatever. But you know what? I think I thought of one. It would actually be, no surprise, people who know me, but probably Metroid. Not that I necessarily played it when I was super, super, super young, but even the older games, they are still amongst my favorite games to play. And a little bit of a side note, one of my favorite film franchises is the Alien movies, which was a big influence on Metroid. And I think what it is I like about those games is the feeling it gives you of being isolated and alone, and you have to explore and survive in this dangerous environment, which is very much what I think the biggest influence that Alien had on the original Metroid was that feeling of being trapped and isolated and whatever else. And I'm not sure exactly how that correlates to like my preferences in games now, but a recent, I guess it was like 4 years ago now, but Alien Isolation is one of my favorite games as well, for that same reason that I would almost compare it to Metroid, because you're on the space station, where at Metroid it's usually a planet, but you're on this space station, you're exploring, trying to survive while this xenomorph is chasing you, but you encounter like doors and obstacles, whatever, that you can't get past until you've found the item you need, just similar to how Metroid and Zelda do that same sort of thing. And I don't know how to really put it into words, but I think that sort of gameplay style of like, I don't want to say survival and I don't want to say horror, but sort of that weird gray zone between them, where you feel
kind of there.
I don't know how to describe it. I really don't. But I think that might be my favorite type of solo experience. That being said, though, some of my favorite games are like Twilight Princess, wherever, where it's just fucking kick the shit out of everything you come across. So at the same time, that's not quite true. But that was just a little bit of a different tidbit compared to RPGs, I guess, that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, when you're like that into games, you'll have sort of like your wheelhouse, like the stuff that you're just naturally drawn to.
Your go-to.
But yeah, I think everyone has like those like sort of weird little pockets of like, oh yeah, but I'm also like super into this thing that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, it's like how Holly's sister is. She doesn't like shooters, but she loves Overwatch. Overwatch is a shooter, but it's whatever it is that's different about that game she likes, as opposed to how, say, Halo does it that she doesn't like.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's when you're as big of a hobbyist in gaming as I am, this particular type of topic is so difficult for me to like clearly talk about it, because I don't have those same experiences that you guys had, where Okami and WarioWare Twisted sort of, those were those games where you're like, your eyes open to like, wow, games can be so interesting. Whereas for me, it was like,
It's always been that way.
when I got home from kindergarten, I already had 4 million fucking consoles in the basement. My dad had a fucking Neo
Hardest part
Geo.
was to choose.
Like, I didn't have a problem of not being exposed to it, and I didn't have the problem of like, I hate to sound privileged, but I never had that problem of like, you wanted that game, but it was exclusive to another platform, or you wanted that game, but you couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Like, I had two parents with, fairly high income, but we lived in like modest means. So there was enough disposable income that if like, I did my chores for a month without whining or complaining about it, I generally got that game I wanted.
Yeah.
So I never really encountered the problem where, like you said, you had to save up the $40 to buy WarioWare or whatever when it came out. Yeah, there was the few occasions of that, but generally it was, if I did good on a math test recently, and my mom and I are in Walmart, and I go, can I go look at games? And she goes, yeah. and I look at a game and I go, that looks cool, generally she'd be like, well, you did real good on your test last week, so if you want it, I can buy it for you, but don't tell your dad.
Those kind of parents.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was always that situation for me where it was,
Yeah.
I didn't really have blocks in my
Yeah.
path.
Well, it didn't. When I was a kid, it didn't feel like I had blocks in my path. It just wasn't as a priority
Yeah.
for me. Like I had games, and they were there if I wanted them. But then there was other things that me as a kid that I did, obviously. But for me, my entertainment world didn't evolve around me having a console and me having a game.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, as a young kid, if I wanted to play a game, it's usually because I wanted to play it with a family member or like my sisters or something like that. That's why, again, going back to like if it was a 2-player game, then that was a lot of fun, because you know my sisters and I, our ages are very close, and you know, we've always like played together. And so, you know, the idea of me playing a game by myself, unheard of. Like there was never a time where I was sitting alone in my family room, which was pretty much the basement, sitting there playing on the TV. If I was playing a game, like a solo game, somebody was right there beside me, almost like playing it with me in a sense, right?
Breathing down your neck.
But like yeah, so there was never really a time where I felt deprived of my gaming needs, right? Like
Yeah.
I had one console and I probably had like 3 games, and it was if I felt like playing that game, I played that game, but I didn't feel deprived from it. But as I got older, and you know I started like playing games, you know I was able to, you know I had a job, I was able to afford a new console, or I waited until Christmas time when I asked for it, and then I bought my own games and all that stuff. That's usually how I accumulated all my consoles and games when I was a kid. But yeah, it's not like I ever felt like the desire that I have to have this specific game. I was never like that. There was never a game that I looked at and I said, I have to have that. There was never a time. Until like I probably was getting closer into my 20s that I was like, oh, I know this game, I really want this game, I've been keeping my eye on it for a couple months or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it was just if I went to the store and I browsed at some games, if I saw something I liked, then I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and if I could afford it and I had the console for it, then I'd buy it. But other than that, I didn't like feel the need that I had to have games in my life. Like, so yeah, just was never like that for me, I guess.
Yeah, I was sort of the same way, because like my friends who had the N64, this was when I was in like elementary school, so their parents would watch my sister and I before and after school while my parents were at work. So basically every day I was playing, you know, Pokemon Stadium or Super Smash Bros. Or something like that, and then I'd go home, and in the evenings and on the weekends, it's like, man, I haven't been playing a lot of video games. I sit down with my Harry Potter.
Read a book. Holy shit.
That's a game I haven't thought of in a long time, is Pokemon Stadium.
I thought you were going to say Harry Potter.
But the Lego Harry Potter is one of the like 2 games my sister
Oh,
owns.
man. I remember playing the Harry Potter games. There was only one that I really liked, because you could fly on Buckbeak, and that was kind of fun. Yeah, but... Because, my mom was the kind of person to buy those kind of games for us. Like, if it was, like, a movie or a
Those are
genre
the
or something, she knew
easiest,
that we were,
like,
buy your kids a present.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say ignorant, but like
Kind
the
of.
parents who have no idea what the hell's
game
going
is,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
When they go to the store to buy their kid a game, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, my son likes Iron Man. He'll probably like Iron
Yeah,
Man the
yeah.
game.
One of a really stupid moment I had when I was a kid. I think it was like, it was Christmas time, and me and my sisters were like bugging our parents, being like, it's Christmas Eve. Can we open like a Christmas Eve present, like just one present kind of thing like that. She's like, oh, okay, I'll give you one that will kind of entertain you kind of thing. And so she had this like case looking present, opened it up, and it was like the 4th Harry Potter or whatever, and it was the game for it. But I looked at it, and my first instinct was, let's watch it! And then my sisters are like, it's a game, stupid. I'm like, oh. My first instinct was, she got me the movie, right? So then we had that to entertain us with. But yeah, my mom was the kind of person to buy me those kind of games, but then I think she caught on that we just didn't like them.
See, my parents basically
kinda
never
bad.
even tried to guess. They'd be like, okay, you know, we're going Christmas shopping. Write down what you want very clearly.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even attempt to say it. They'd go into EB Games or whatever, hand the piece of paper real quick. Do you have these?
My parents did the same thing.
Well, my parents were like that too, but then my mom would try to get spontaneous and see if she could find something that we would enjoy that we didn't ask for, right? Because, sometimes those are the surprises. But yeah, usually when it was like Christmas and I asked for anything game related, I wanted the new latest console. That's what I waited for Christmas to ask for.
Yeah.
Because then I didn't have to pay for it myself, because that's the most expensive part, and then all I had to do was pay for the games that I wanted. So that's how I accumulated most of my consoles. And then if I was lucky, I would convince my parents that they wanted it too, and then they would get it.
See, Rob, you just reminded me, this isn't gaming related, but it's kind of funny. A big part of my childhood was the anime Dragon Ball Z. And so every year on my birthday and Christmas and whatever, I always wanted a Dragon Ball Z like action figure or game or whatever. And my mom told me this story years ago, but I don't remember how old I would have been, but I asked for a Goku action figure because there was commercials, I guess, that like a new cool one, and I wanted it. So my mother and father go, and I think they said it was a Walmart. And my mom asked my dad to go down the toy aisle to see if he can find it over here, and she's going to go down this other one. And my dad...
He's the one with spiky hair.
Oh,
Oh, shit.
My dad goes, you're not that far off. My dad goes in the toy aisle, and there's just like shelves apparently of like Dragon Ball Z stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as my dad was concerned, he was like, "Okay, I'm looking for the Dragon Ball Z guy." So he goes in the aisle, and Mom says it's just covered like from end to aisle to the other end of the aisle on one side with nothing but Dragon Ball stuff. So my dad literally goes in, and she hears him go, "Oh, fuck."
Oh, man.
He did find it, though. I don't know if he did or Mom did. But
You gotta send him like a picture. It's like, this is what the guy, this is the guy I need.
That's the easy thing about today for that same situation, because parents can just ask their kids, send me the Amazon link
Yeah.
for that thing you want. But yeah, my dad was always like very careful about his language in public places, so I always like picturing him. I'm just gonna find that Dragon Ball guy. Oh fuck!
They're all over the
I picture
place.
the aisle full of like the most obscure characters too, like just fucking the alligator with sunglasses from Yoshi's Island. He ends up buying that.
This is the guy, right?
You're like, they haven't even dubbed these episodes yet. I don't know what this is.
What's a Piccolo?
I mean, at that point, they haven't even started making the show yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else needs to be discussed on this podcast. We've gone a little bit longer than even our Switch one was. Is there anything else you guys wanted to mention?
Aliens.
No,
They're out there.
Aliens.
I guess something I just thought of a minute ago of how to end this off would be what game would you recommend to the other people in this room you don't think they've played that they should maybe try to play?
I've been
for
wanting to
sure.
play Okami.
If we get the chance, is that they should maybe try to play before we do another podcast.
Oh.
Like it can literally be anything because it's, if it's some sort of obscure Sega Saturn game, Rob's not going to be able to play
I
that.
don't think I've ever
No.
played a Sega Saturn game, so.
I just mean it can be literally anything. I was just trying to think of something, a way to end this that maybe leads into the next one. Is that way if we do get a chance to play them, then on the beginning of the next podcast we can say, well, we played these games. Here's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, one that I know is going to be easy for you guys because I know you own it is Baroque.
I can't think of any games that you guys haven't ever played. Oh.
Well, Rob hasn't played Okami, but I know that's one of the upcoming Switch titles you're considering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course I'd recommend that game to anybody. You ever played Gex?
No, I haven't.
You should play Gex. I think you'll like Gex.
I've got Project 64 on my computer.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I think that's a game I would recommend. I think that's a fun game. I've never played like the full version of Gex myself. Like I had it on a cereal box demo disc.
I think I have it on the Saturn.
It's a lot of fun. Like the character Gex himself is kind of weird. Like it's not what you would expect. But yeah, like it's a really good game. Like it's a puzzle game. I remember the one that I ended up playing. I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember there being like a bunch of portals, so you went into like a couple like different worlds in a way. And there was one specific one where it was like the entire world was like a haunted mansion, and it was kind of cool because it, like me as a kid, it was like kind of creepy at the same time. So even sometimes advancing into certain areas or rooms, it was actually kind of terrifying to go into this dark room that has these floating lanterns because you're like, what's holding the lantern? Right? It's just sticks, right? But I mean, I have memories of that game. I think it's kind of cool. Like I haven't been like reintroduced to Gex like now. I think the last time I played it was when I was like super young, when I had that demo disc on my PlayStation 1. I've been trying to find like actual hard copies of the game at like old video game trader stores and stuff like that, but I can never find it. But I want to play that game again. So if you do have a version of Gex at all, I would recommend playing it. I thought it was fun.
I'm sure that's something that will eventually get a remaster too.
Yeah,
Potentially.
potentially.
I don't know about Gex.
No, I feel like it was popular enough.
It was popular, but not. I feel like a game sort of has to be popular in sort of a lasting way. Like it's like we're not going to see an Arrow the Acrobat remaster anytime soon. We got Bubsy though.
We did get a new Bubsy. I can't believe that, but we did.
And a new Yo Noid.
There's a new
What?
Yeah, it's not like official. It's just like this weird little freeware thing. But yeah, it's Yo Noid 2.
Yo Noid.
Came out last
Yo
year.
Noid.
I'm trying to think of a game to get Rob to play. Because I'm going to get Holly to play a Mario game.
Oh no! I'm kidding. I don't hate Mario. I've just never played Mario.
I can't think of a game to get Rob to play. Most of the ones that pop into my head are games that I know you don't have any access to because of like consoles you don't own and like emulators for those consoles don't exist yet.
And my computer's like 6 years old.
Although that being said, we have some time today. If you wanted, I could force you to play like a little bit of Monster Hunter World.
There you go. It's a good game.
I don't know.
Okay, alright.
Well, we'll figure it out. But I'm going to make Holly play, I think, Super Mario World. No, I think I'm going to do Mario Brothers 3.
Why?
Because that's Rob's favorite.
That was the first Mario platformer I ever played, and I only have it because when my friend from the time moved into his house, someone had like left the cartridge under the couch. He just found, he's like, I have this game, you can have it.
Oh wow. Here you go.
You know what's kind of it's a little bit off topic, but one of my favorite ever Dragon Ball Z games is actually a trilogy on the Game Boy Advance. And they're fantastic action RPGs. I was actually planning, almost for 2 years now, I've been planning on doing a video at some point about this trilogy, because I think it's, not even just as a Dragon Ball fan, just amazing action RPG, and just happens to be Dragon Ball, but it's a fantastic adaptation of the story of Dragon Ball Z as well, except for the first one. The first one is a hot pile of garbage. But
The alligator with sunglasses shows up.
But you just reminded me of, I played the second one first, which is, I think, the best of the three of them. And then the third one. And I loved them. And I wanted the first one. And I couldn't find it anywhere, probably because nobody wanted it. And I was mentioning it at school. I think I was in grade 5 or 6 or something. I was mentioning it at school that I really wanted the first one. And some kid I didn't even know was like, oh, here. And he just hands me the cartridge. He had it in his backpack. He's like, I don't like it. You can have it.
But why is it in your backpack?
I didn't get a chance to have it. I didn't know him. He was
He was your
walking-
fairy game mother.
He was walking past us in the hallway as I was talking to my friend, and he's like, "Oh, here you can have it," and then he walked away.
It's the old man from that Twilight Zone
That's
episode.
kind of creepy.
I have what you need. Hand you a new pair of shoes.
That's kind of creepy, honestly.
I
Like,
still have that cartridge. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just
Earth.
the game is garbage.
but why was he carrying it around if he one didn't want it, and two if it sucks? Why was he carrying it around with him?
It's like, today's the day. Someone's gonna get this game. I'm sick of it.
Maybe he was planning to sneak it into someone's pocket. It's like fucking Jumanji just making its rounds.
Oh, gee. Oh. Scary.
So yeah, we'll think of a game for Rob. But yeah,
Prepare yourself, Rob.
I think this is about it for this podcast. I enjoy doing these. We should do more.
Yeah.
We should. This particular one was a little bit of scatterbrained because
bit.
it was difficult, especially for me, to like narrow down.
Well, it's such a wide topic,
Yeah.
right? And then once we start kind of getting into it, it kind of like disperses into other places. So, I mean, who minds? I mean, it's
No,
okay.
that's
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with it. Hopefully,
Conversation.
everyone who listens is fine with it. If you don't want to listen, then turn your damn computer off. I don't care.
Hey, go listen to another podcast. There's more podcasts
Oh,
than there
yeah.
are people in the
Oh
world.
yeah. Yeah. Why are you listening to us? Jeez, no, I'm kidding.
Because I mean, like,
Please.
yeah, like there's like two guys making half of the podcast.
And yeah, I guess that's about it for this one. Next one we do, I'll get a different microphone for Holly to figure out.
Yeah, I'm on a headset right now.
Yeah. You can probably tell because I'm watching her waveform compared to the waveform Rob and I have, and it automatically caps itself at a specific volume. So I think her microphone is consistently stretched to its limit.
Or I'm just too loud.
No, I don't think it's that you're too loud. I think
Oh,
it's just
gee, thanks.
the microphone can't handle.
How loud
I'm
you
too-
are.
I'm too noisy. Thanks, guys. Thanks for telling me that.
It's not
Wow.
a great mic.
Wow.
So I can tell the quality between her specifically and us is going to be very different. So we're going to try a different mic next time for her. But I'm sure you could understand. I'm going to laugh if I go to edit this and everything you say is.
Oh, that's right. I feel the same way.
Oh no.
But I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I guess we'll call it quits there. If you're watching this video, down in the comments, leave 2 or 3 games that you think are the most influential on yourself, and subscribe to the channel if you want. Like us, dislike us, I don't care.
If there's something you want to hear us
We
talk
share a
about,
little.
give us a suggestion.
Yeah,
Or maybe if some Super Mario games you think I should play.
all of them. Like, there's some
I don't think I
bad
have
ones.
time for all of them.
I think you'd
I don't know if
actually
you
really.
need to play all of
I
them.
think you'd actually. I know what game
Oh,
I'm gonna get you
shit.
to play.
Oh no.
I know what game
We
I'm
should
gonna
have
get you to play.
stopped.
Because you can get it on an emulator for a Super Nintendo. Play Super Mario RPG.
All right.
Here you go.
Okay.
You have to. Here's my command though. The games we all are choosing for each other, we have to play at least, let's say 3 hours. No, 2.5. Not doesn't have to be in one sitting. But,
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
There's almost nothing I can play for 2.5 hours in one sitting.
We have to play 2.5 hours of game time to really let it sink in and click. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fair. Did anybody suggest a game for me? I don't think they did.
There's not a game you haven't played.
I know.
Okami.
Oh, I'm gonna play it on the Switch.
I know, but it's big.
Oh, that's something else too. Stay tuned to the channel. I'm gonna fucking hold you to it now. Stay tuned to the channel for eventually. Holly's planning on doing a review of Okami.
That's right. I'm gonna review my comments on the first original version of the game that I played, and then I'm gonna do a playthrough of the game on the Switch, and I'm gonna compare the two. So we'll see how that works out.
And eventually, who knows when, my Bayonetta review will be finished. I've been working on it for months, and I just abandoned it because I did. So
How
eventually,
it goes.
I don't want the. I actually like sat down, recorded the whole game from start to finish. I wrote a review. I recorded my lines. And I'm just splicing the video together, and the video itself is like half edited. So I don't want to just abandon it.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point where, well, the ship has sailed. I was trying to do the video because it was launching on the Switch. That was months ago.
Oh, it's already come out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been
Oh.
out for a while.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So it's the ship's kind of sailed.
Good job,
but
Rob.
for no other reason than I want to finish what I started. I'm going to finish it, but who knows when. This podcast will come out beforehand.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's on the horizon eventually. And another project I want to work on is I don't know if it'll be a review because I don't know 100% if that's what I want to devote every video I do to being. But sometime this year, the only game I've ever backed on Kickstarter is launching, and I'm getting it on the Switch. So I plan on doing a video about it in some form because I was one of its backers. And I mean, it had so many other backers that I'm not saying I'm special, but it's just an excuse I have for trying to do a video on it.
I was the main investor. I was sort of the Al Gore to this game's internet.
I invested like 90% of its funds.
I was the model for the main character.
No, I'm not going to say it. Yeah, I guess that's just about it. Any closing thoughts? Anything you guys want to say?
I think we just did our closing.
We did. I know.
Yeah.
We kept talking after doing them, which is something Rob and I are really bad at.
Yeah, I know, right? All right. Well, if we have any thoughts, we can probably mention them in our next podcast. I am sure.
Or we
Buy
can
our
get into
shirts.
fights in the YouTube comments.
We'll just continue it, just typed.
When we buy our shirts. We don't have shirts, but if we did, buy them.
I've got an orange one. There's like a hole in it. You can have that one.
We'll start a shirt store and it's just literally our old shirts.
Shit, we don't want anymore. This one's just like a green one that says Canada on the hem. I don't really like.
All right. Well,
All right.
I guess that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you later.
Alligator.